Hello, movie fans, and welcome to another episode of Film Influencers in History. Last episode, I discussed Edwin S. Porter and his influence on editing and narrative filmmaking. Today, I will discuss one of my personal favorite early filmmakers, Georges Méliès, a leading pioneer in the advancement of special effects and showing the full scope of imagination that film allows. Méliès was born in Paris, France, 1861. From his early years as a boy, he was fascinated by the art of theater. I can relate. Specifically, stage design and puppetry. He made his own homemade puppet theaters as a child and even performed them for his family. His passion for theater and constant creative drive would have significant impact on his films down the line. He worked at his father's shoe factory as a young man and eventually saved up enough money to lease Theatre Robert Houdin in 1888. The theater was first founded in 1845 by, who do you know, Robert Houdin. It mainly served to entertain with stage illusions initially. Méliès was a classic magician, showman for the theater. While this video aims to focus on his film influence, I must note that he was a highly successful magician with a profound career. This love for illusion lit his pioneering of special effects. But I must show where the inspirational spark for pursuing film came to him in the first place. It was at a demonstration of the Lumiere brothers' cinematograph, where he was immediately drawn to film. He wanted to buy a camera from them originally, but they refused to sell one no matter how much money he offered. But that didn't stop him from getting his hands on a camera. Destined to show films at his theater, he searched around for a camera until eventually he bought a theatrograph from Robert W. Paul and transformed it into a camera himself. Truly a man of great drive and dedication. And to project his films, he patented the kinetograph Robert Houdin in 1896. He even started making his own films that same year. The first film he made was titled Playing Cards and was a remake of the Lumiere brothers' film Partie des Cartes. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. He displayed more originality soon after that, though, and with the release of The Vanishing Lady that same year, we saw the earliest example of his greatest influence on film: special effects. While not the first film with special effects, that is likely the execution of Mary Stuart in 1895, Méliès had the greatest influence overall on special effects in early cinema. The techniques he had pioneered were the matte effect and the dissolve transition. The earliest example of the matte effect comes from his 1899 short film, A Mysterious Portrait. A matte in filmmaking is when multiple images are combined into one film. And during its early application, exposure was played with to achieve the effect. In the short, Méliès places a large blank picture frame behind him. He sets a stool inside the frame, and then a sentient copy of himself appears inside and starts moving around before eventually disappearing. The earliest example of the dissolve effect was in the 1899 film Cinderella, which was also the first film adaptation of the classic fairy tale. He also further refined other established techniques such as the stop trick, which is basically when something is filmed with consistent framing, but something in frame is rearranged for the next shot to create an effect of it appearing or disappearing or just appearing somewhere else in the shot. His pioneering just doesn't appear only in technique, but also genre. Winding back to 1897, his film House of the Devil is considered the very first horror film. It takes place in a medieval castle, and then a bat transforms into the devil and causes havoc. While not really scary by today's standards, it still stands as a massive influence and was maybe a little frightening for audiences back then. He made more horror after that with the first Mummy film in 1899 with Cleopatra. Unfortunately, though, there is no footage of this that survived, and a lot of his films are actually lost. But, of course, I must discuss his most famous film, A Trip to the Moon, released in 1902. It is the first sci-fi movie and the longest film he made up to that point, clocking at 14 minutes. It depicts astronomers using a space capsule to travel to the moon. There, they encounter aliens and other strange occurrences. I'm sure you have seen the iconic image of the moon. It's a staple of film history. In his life, Georges Méliès made around 520 films. There are many others that he made that are certainly a spectacle of early special effects and narrative techniques. Some of my favorites, besides the ones mentioned in the video, are The Astronomer's Dream in 1898, The Man with the Rubber Head in 1902, The Impossible Voyage in 1904, and one of my personal favorites, The Conquest of the Pole in 1912, which is also one of his final films. There's more, but we'd be here all day if I discuss all of his films. So I just touched upon his most influential and pioneering works in this video. In 1912, Georges Méliès retired from film production. Unfortunately, in 1923, he went bankrupt and Theater Robert Houdin was closed. However, in the late 1920s, he was awarded a Legion of Honor by the French government and given a rent-free apartment where he would spend the rest of his days. He died in 1938 at the age of 76. His films have had a profound influence. He showed filmmakers to not be scared of letting their imagination run free. With that concludes this episode of Film Influencers in History. I hope everyone enjoyed and learned something new today. Leave a like if you liked, and subscribe if you might. Take care.